In eastern Ukraine, a high-intensity pre-dawn confrontation has unfolded, raising questions about the future of air defense doctrine and battlefield deterrence. Near Kupiansk, where temperatures hovered around 19 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 Russian S-400 battalions advanced into exposed terrain, deploying an estimated $1.8 billion worth of launchers, 9 2N6E gravestone radar arrays, command vehicles, and fully stocked interceptor magazines. Steel stabilizers locked into frozen ground, hydraulic masts rose, and long-range antennas began rotating as the system's network came online. According to the operational layout, the battalions were positioned to monitor airspace at ranges approaching 250 miles. The movement occurred amid heightened attention on Ukrainian long-range strike patterns, following earlier assessments that low-cost first-person view drones had been used to target armored assets from the vertical axis. The new S-400 deployment appeared intended to reinforce broader regional coverage, including approaches toward the occupied Crimean corridor and strategic sites such as the Crimea Bridge. With no high-altitude tracks detected and no long-range signatures present, Russian air defense crews reported stable radar conditions. Screens displayed uniform returns, and operators prepared for a possible missile engagement cycle. However, emerging battlefield dynamics again tested long-held assumptions. A dense fog layer, suspended between 150 and 200 feet above the terrain, limited optical reconnaissance and reduced thermal contrast. Conventional drones remained grounded, and the atmosphere appeared to favor Russian defensive preparations. But above the battalions, unseen and undetected, more than 40 Ukrainian FPV drones were already holding position in a vertical blind zone, silent, GPS off, and waiting for a signal. Their presence, combined with the S-400's outward focus detection geometry, set the stage for a sequence that would redefine the engagement. Subscribe for more frontline analysis and verified reporting. As the fog remained settled over the frozen fields near Kupiansk, the sequence that followed began with Russian missile launches at approximately 3:14 a.m. S-400 interceptors ignited in synchronized volleys, sending multi-million-dollar surface-to-air missiles vertically through the clouded air. Nearby, a Pantsir S-1 battery and a Tor M2 system activated their short-range defensive cycles, while an electronic warfare unit attempted to suppress any unidentified signals. Russian operators monitoring radar screens interpreted the activity as a standard engagement against distant threats, with no indication that the danger originated directly above their own launchers. The interceptor launches cleared narrow vertical corridors through the fog for roughly 3 seconds, revealing the airspace above the battalions. That brief opening served as the trigger for more than 40 Ukrainian FPV drones positioned at low throttle overhead. The drones accelerated almost simultaneously, descending in a near-vertical drop. Their approach exploited a documented blind zone in the S-400's detection geometry, which prioritizes long-range and horizon-level tracks rather than close-in vertical threats. With launch crews preparing the next firing cycle, fresh missile tubes opened, exposing armed interceptors valued at several $1 million each. Within seconds, the first drones impacted open launch tubes. Charges detonated against live missile warheads, setting off a rapid ignition chain among more than 24 interceptors stored in launchers. The resulting explosions produced a fireball rising hundreds of feet and a shockwave that damaged adjacent radar vehicles, support trucks, and antenna systems. Several S-400 launchers went offline almost instantly, with digital telemetry on command monitors blinking and then disappearing entirely. Additional air defense assets, including a Buck M3 battery and a Pantsir S-1 unit, attempted to reassign targets, but electromagnetic disruption and physical damage limited system response. As crews attempted to regain control, the fragmented radar picture resembled the early stages of a large coordinated strike. Russian doctrine instructs operators to expend remaining missiles when ground launchers are threatened. The order was issued to empty surviving tubes, and 6 S-400 launchers attempted to reinitiate firing sequences. However, 7 Ukrainian drones, held in reserve for this expected reaction, descended through rising heat and smoke. They struck exposed interceptors in rapid succession, causing overlapping detonations that destroyed all remaining operational launchers in the sector. Within seconds, the battalion-level firing capability collapsed entirely. The blast left the area scattered with wreckage, burning propellant, and disabled vehicles. And as the fires continued, a new phase of the engagement began. 17 ATACMS missiles entered the battle space from high altitude, descending at speeds approaching Mach 3. With all interceptors destroyed and auxiliary systems destabilized, no Russian air defense units in the immediate area were able to attempt a meaningful response. The missiles targeted key assets, the 92 N6E gravestone radar arrays and hardened command nodes responsible for coordinating the air defense network. Multiple radar vehicles and command trucks were struck in rapid succession, resulting in structural collapse, system blackouts, and the loss of data link coherence across the regiment. Attempts by surviving systems, including elements of a Buk M3 battery, Pantsir S-1 guns, and Tor M2 units to reacquire descending tracks were unsuccessful. Vertical engagement angles and disrupted radar returns prevented effective targeting. Within approximately 30 seconds, major radar and command components were eliminated. The regiment lost both long-range visibility and centralized control, reducing what had been a 250-mile integrated air defense grid to isolated, disconnected units on the ground. Subscribe for continued reporting and detailed field analysis. Following the destruction of the launchers and command infrastructure near Kupiansk, remaining Russian support vehicles attempted to withdraw. Reload trucks, fuel carriers, and communications vans moved along frozen farm roads, navigating through smoke and debris. With radar links severed and command vehicles disabled, the retreat occurred without coordinated guidance. Ukrainian FPV drones, 9 of which remained operational, descended to low altitude and pursued the convoy along road corridors. Several vehicles were struck directly, including a fuel truck that ignited upon impact and a communications van hit by a downward approach drone. Additional ATACMS missiles targeted an ammunition depot approximately 2 miles behind the primary battleground, resulting in secondary explosions that rose hundreds of feet. By 3:47 a.m., the sector-wide air defense network had ceased functioning. Preliminary assessments cited Russian losses between $1.7 and $1.9 billion in destroyed launchers, radar systems, interceptors, command vehicles, and support assets. Ukrainian expenditure was estimated between $45 and $50 million in FPV drones and ATACMS munitions. Analysts noted an exchange ratio of roughly 35-1, identifying the operation as a significant instance of vertical axis exploitation rather than a long-range penetration. In this case, sequencing and timing allowed low-cost platforms to enter blind zones created by doctrinal assumptions, striking exposed hardware at the moment launch systems opened for interceptor cycling. Military observers stated that the S-400 system's advertised engagement range, extending up to 250 miles, was not a factor during the confrontation. Defensive architecture designed to counter distant, high-speed threats was unable to respond effectively to slow, low-cost drones situated directly above the battalion. The detonations triggered by impacts on open interceptor tubes further accelerated system collapse, converting stored missile propellant into a destructive force within the air defense grid itself. The subsequent ATACMS strikes, timed after the loss of vertical coverage, removed radar and command components essential for network targeting. The aftermath left scattered wreckage across frozen fields, with radar assemblies torn from mounts and launcher chassis partially buried in craters. Local settlements reported broken windows and ground tremors consistent with the shock waves described by field observers. Analysts noted that the engagement underscored the vulnerability of high-value air defense platforms when operating without full vertical surveillance coverage. It also highlighted the changing character of the conflict, in which low-cost aerial platforms have increasingly been used to degrade or destroy systems originally engineered to counter far more advanced threats. Strategic implications remain under assessment. The loss of long-range radar and air defense capacity in the affected area temporarily reduced Russian coverage depth. The event also intensified debate about the sustainability of costly interceptor-based networks in environments where adversaries can combine timing, environmental concealment, and low-cost aerial assets. The confrontation near Kupiansk reinforced ongoing discussions about the evolution of drone warfare and the challenges posed to traditional integrated air defense systems. Subscribe for verified updates, extended reporting, and context on developing operations.